Welcome back to another video, and today we're gonna have a puzzle. So we cannot enter the area, but once we finish the puzzle, the door is gonna open and we're also gonna be able to walk across as well. So let's get started. So let's start this off by creating the code to detect whether the puzzle has been finished or not. So let's go ahead, let's go inside of our BP puzzle master. And inside of here, let's look for our rotate stuff. We have the second loop. Once the second loop has been completed, this is where we move on from there. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to do a for each loop, like so. And we need the conditions for the thing to be finished. So inside of our puzzle master, we're going to create two variables today. So let's make the first one. Now I'm going to call mine complete rotations, since I'm using rotations for this specific puzzle. Then I'm also then going to be using a rotator type of a variable. And then I'm going to make this into an array, since we have multiple pieces inside of our puzzle and they all need to meet a specific rotation. Now, error, obviously, we have no array provided, so we're going to use our complete rotations array for this, like so. And to have less things inside of here, and so we can create like a local variable that gets ignored by everything else, I'm going to select both of these nodes, right click and collapse to a function. Let's call this is puzzle finished. Let's call this finished, like so. Now let's select our function and let's give this an output, and let's call this success. And then we're going to do an if over here at the end. So if the puzzle has been finished, then if it's true, we're going to run our code to basically do something. Okay, let's head into our is puzzle finished, and let's actually set this up, because at this point, well, it doesn't really do anything and it's always going to fail. So what we want to do is first we want to grab the rotation from our objects, so we know in which rotations they are right now. So we're going to grab our data variable. We're going to get a copy from the array's index, like so. So we're going to need so that our complete rotations has the exact same amount of entries as the data one has. And we're going to set that up in a bit. So let's right click our get nodes output, split the bins. We have the component, and from the component we want to get the relative rotation, since, well, we're going to be working in relative rotations over here. And then we're going to check if this relative rotation is equal to the array element. So the rotation that's supposed to be the complete rotation, basically. And then we can go ahead and run an if on this, connect the execution to the loop body, and now it's going to go through all of the rotations and it's going to check if the rotation is correct. Now we need to give this a little bit of a error tolerance. So I'm going to give this like 0.5 in my case, should do the trick. Okay, so then once the puzzle has been completed, we want to go ahead and, well, the check has been completed, we want to return. And we need to create this Boolean variable. So I'm going to drag from the outputs and I'm going to promote to a local variable, and I'm going to call this L_success, like this. Now by default, we want to select this variable and we want to make sure that this is set to be true by default. And then when we're going to go through our rotations, so the one that's supposed to be like the completed rotations, we're going to check if all of them meet their end goal, and if they don't, if it's false, then we're going to go ahead and return false. So we're going to set our variable to be false at this point. So make sure that your variable by default is true, and then if the rotation does not add up, then it's going to return false, like this. And that's all we need for this specific puzzle. You can do pretty much the same thing with the vectors. Basically, the code should be exactly the same if you're moving things up and down instead of rotating them. Okay, so far so good for this one. Now, the next thing is we actually do need to go ahead and do something with this whole thing. So what I'm going to do over here first is I'm going to create a variable, because I'm going to be opening doors. So once this puzzle has been finished, the door is going to come down and we're going to be able to walk through. So I'm going to call my variable doors, but you can call this whatever you want. Mine's going to be just door. And then I'm going to change the variable type to be an actor. And in my case, I'm only going to open one door. So I'm going to change this from an array back to a single variable like this. Now we can grab our doors and then we could initiate the code which would open up our doors. And to make everything easier so we don't have to cast to all kinds of actors, I'm going to go ahead and set up an interface for this. So in the content folder, right click, go to the blueprints, create a blueprint interface. And I'm going to call mine puzzle interface. Let's open this up. We already have a default function. Let's use that. Let's rename this to open doors. Compile and save this, and that's all that we're going to do in this interface. We're not going to have any inputs, outputs, or any of that stuff. All we need is an event which actually runs the action of opening the doors. So now that we have this interface created in our project, that means that inside of our puzzle master, we should have it available. So we can do open doors message, like so, and then the target is our doors. Good. So far, so good. Now, the next thing is we need the actual doors themselves as well. So let's go ahead and let's quickly create our doors. So in the content folder, again, right click, go to the blueprint class, and I'm going to create a regular actor, and I'm going to call mine BP_door. Let's open this up. And I'm going to add a single component. So add, and I'm going to add just a cube like this. I'm going to say that it's 4 in the X, 0.1 in the Y, 4 in the Z. So I'm going to have a huge door like this. Should do the trick for me. Now let's go in the event graph. Let's get rid of all of these nodes for now. First, let's go inside of our class defaults. And again, to lower the door, I'm going to be using my event tick. So I want to make sure that by default, it is disabled. So under the class defaults, start with tick enabled. Nope, that's going to be false. Let's go then inside of our class settings and let's give this guy the interface so that we can actually initiate the open doors event. So class settings for the open doors, for the BP door, and under the interfaces, we're going to add our puzzle interface. Compile and save this, and now we have our open doors. So we're going to right click, do event open doors like this. There we go. Now, once we launch this, all I want to do is actually, I want to go ahead and set tick enabled, set actor tick enabled to be true, like this. So all it's going to do in this specific puzzle at this point, it's only going to enable the tick, and then it's going to allow us to move our doors down. So we can go ahead and right click, do the event tick like this. And let's go ahead and let's set up a timer just like we did inside of our puzzle master. So we previously created this lovely timer over here, and we're going to do the same thing inside of our BP door. So we're going to need two variables. We're going to need our current time, which is going to be a float. And then we're also going to have a rotation time. This isn't going to be a rotation, but since I called this a rotation time in the other blueprint, I'm going to do the same thing over here. So again, in the event tick, our task is to update the current time. And we can do that by getting the current time, so the actual current time we have right now, and we can combine that by adding together the delta seconds with the current time, and then that is our new current time like this. Good. Now, the next thing is to actually update the location of our actors. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click and I'm going to go ahead and set actor location. We're going to update the actor's location. So we're going to move the entire actor down. And so for this to work, we're going to need two things. We're going to first need a starting position. So we're going to call this start location. And this is going to be a vector. So we're going to know where the actor is right now. Well, at the start, actually. And then we're going to create another variable, which is going to be the end location. So where the actor should end up in after the movement of the doors is finished. Now, obviously, we need to set up the start. So I'm going to, again, right-click and do the event begin play. So whenever we hit play on our game, we're going to go ahead and we're going to set the start location to be right-click, get actor location. So once we begin the game, we're going to go ahead and store the location where the door was located at that point. And that allows us to select our starting location and go ahead and lerp vectors, so we can lerp between the starting position and the end position. And it's all based on what we provide in the alpha. So if it's 0, it's going to be this location. If it's 1, it's going to be this location, and everything in between is going to be everything in between. And then the return value can go into the new location. Now we need to set up the alpha, and alpha again is very simple with our current and rotation times. So we're going to grab our current time, divide this with the rotation time, and it's going to give us a number between 0 and 1 based on how far into the motion we are. And that can be our alpha now. Okay, that's good. Now we need to disable the tick so it doesn't tick forever. Obviously it's going to reach its point and it's going to stay there for the most part, but we want to stop it. We don't want it to continuously just keep on going downwards or anything like that. So once we have changed the location on every tick, we're going to check if the current time is bigger or equal to our rotation time. So once we reach the rotation time, once this condition is going to be true, we're going to go ahead and set tick enabled back to false so that our puzzle no longer moves. Well, our door actually. Okay, that's pretty much it for the doors. We need to set up a couple of things so we can actually provide the values. So for example, the rotation time, how long this door is how long it's gonna take for this door to open. So I'm gonna say that my rotation time is gonna be 2 seconds by default, but maybe I might have multiple doors in the level. I might want to use multiple different times for the doors to open. So I'm going to make this instance editable so I can actually edit this value for every single door that I have in the level. And also we're going to need to make our end location also instance editable so that we can actually say where it needs to end up in. Okay, so we have made those two visible. So we're going to go back into the viewport. Let's bring in the door, and I'm actually gonna get rid of these guys like so. Bring in my door. Let's rotate this like so. And let's make sure it's roughly like this. Let's expand this maybe a little bit so it's a little bit bigger. Move it back a bit. Something like this should do the trick. Okay, so this is where it's gonna start off from, and now we need to know where it's gonna end up in. So since we made those two variables instance editable, when we select the door, we can change the rotation time and the end location. So our current location is this, but we want to make sure that our door goes like this. So I moved my door down, so that means that now I can actually grab the location, which is -210 in the z-axis. So I'm just going to right click over here and I'm going to copy, and then I'm going to paste it in the end location like so. So now you can see those two locations match up. So now I can bring this back up to where it actually needs to be at the start like so. And I'm good to go on this one. Okay. Now the last thing left for us to do is actually setting up so that the puzzle can be finished and we know which rotations should be used. So real quick, let's head back into our puzzle master and let's make sure that we grab our two newly created variables. The complete rotations should be instance editable, so we can provide this from the outside, and the doors should be doing the same thing, instance editable, like this. So now, back inside of our viewport, if we select the door, if we select the puzzle rather, we can change the complete rotation. So we have 3 objects, so there should be 3 rotations. So we're going to add 3 instances to this. And I want my puzzle to be finished once it's at 0, 0, 0, like it is right now. So once it's flat, that means that the puzzle has been finished. And then we want to connect it to the doors. So we have our doors variable. So we can click on this pick actor from scene, and we can select our BP door, like so. So we now need to think about the math. Now, I already calculated the math before. So if I go to my BP bridge, I'm going to explain what I did. So here are the rotations. So I imagined that I'm going to click X, Z, X, V. So that's going to be my combo, right? For the doors to be unlocked. So I did calculations like this. So I'm pressing X, so that means that that's the first key. So the first actor is going to be 25, and we're going to do plus, since it's Z, I'm going to do plus 10, and then with the X it's going to be plus 25, and then with the V it is going to be minus 15, which ends up in 45. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab the cube 1 and I'm going to move this 45 degrees. And since I ended up with a positive number, I want to make sure that my puzzle piece is rotated in the negatives. So since I'm using the y-axis, I'm going to be setting up to this minus 45 like so. So that's how I did my calculations. I have done it for all 3 of these, so I'm just going to set those up. So the cube number 2 is going to be again 45. And the cube number 3 is going to be minus 80. Not this one. Oh, no. We need the rotation. Minus 80. Like so. Good. So let's go back in the level. So we have our puzzle ready to go. So we should be able to hit play. And let's do so. X, Z, X, V. And as you can see, the doors have been opened. Good. So that's really nice. Now, real quick, let's set up one more thing. So since this is a bridge, a door doesn't really make sense. So we should be able to walk across somewhere over here, right? So I'm going to go ahead and move this to roughly over here. And then I'm also going to make sure to make this a little bit bigger, like this. Now I'm going to still be able to fall through the gaps, but that's just a bad design issue, really. So even if we haven't reached the correct rotation, you will see that we are still able to basically walk across, right? So we're still able to walk across, which is not what we want. We only want to be able to walk across when the puzzle has been fully finished and not like this. So I'm going to go inside of the child actor, so the BP bridge puzzle. I'm going to go to the viewport, and I'm going to be adding a new box collision component like this. I don't want to be a child of anything, just a standalone. And then 1, 1, 1 in the scale, and 0 in the location, so it's right in the middle. And I'm going to expand this to 200, 200, 200, something like this. It's rotated, so I'm going to change the rotation back to 0 as well. So this is how it's going to look. And what I want to make sure of is that under the collisions, so the collision preset will be block all. So that means that at this point I can no longer enter this area, and I want to be able to enter this area only once the puzzle has been fully finished. So we need to somehow run some kind of a code over here which would allow us to grab our collision box and just simply destroy the component so that it's gone and we're able to walk through this. So we need to set that up. So we're going to initiate that under our BP puzzle master. And over here, I'm going to create a new custom event, and I'm going to call this puzzle completed. Puzzle completed. Now, if you have some kind of a code that you want to run always on all of these puzzles, you're going to want to run it over here. If you want to only run some pieces individually for every single puzzle individually and not for all of them, then you want to go back to your BP puzzle at this BP bridge at this point. You still need this in the master, but then in the child you can do again the puzzle complete event like this. So this is a event from the parent, and you just want to connect it up like this, right? So once we launch this in the parent, it's going to launch it also in the child. Now, if you have some code inside of the parent over here and you also want to initiate this, so you have options. You can do something over here and you can run it, and you can also have something over here and you can avoid and you can decide not to run it in the child. And to run the code in the child, you need to select the event, right click it, and go to add call to parent function. Now this is the code that's from the parent, and it's going to run in the child as well if you connect it inside of here. So if I'm going to connect it over here, it's first going to run the parent's code and then the child's code. If I'm going to bring it over here, it's going to be the other way around. First the child and then the parent's code. We're pretty much good to go. We just need to initiate this. So inside of our BP puzzle master, once the puzzle has been finished, the door is trying to open, we can go ahead and run our puzzle complete like this. So now if we go back and try this again, you will see that we cannot enter this area, but if we do X, Z, X, V, our puzzle has been completed, and now we can walk through this. And that's going to be it for this video. So now actually something happens when we finish the puzzle. Obviously you can run all kinds of codes through this, and we're going to be updating this system even more with some more extra features in the future. So thank you for watching. If you enjoy this type of content, make sure to subscribe because there's going to be quite a lot of videos on this topic. And yeah, see you in the next one.